God, we'll get there. We'll get there, I promise. Good morning. It's Illinois in Focus Daily on this Tuesday after a long Independence Day holiday. Independence Day, God, you can tell I'm back after a break. It was Labor Day holiday. Oh boy! All right, it's gonna be one of those weeks. Actually, good morning. It is September 2nd, 2025. Can't believe we're already in September. Good morning to everybody jumping into the chat room. Appreciate you guys hanging out. A few minutes late this morning, but obviously, a lot to cover. We're going to talk live with Ted Drowski, former president of WirePoints, and expected to announce officially that he's going to be running for the Republican nomination for governor. So we'll talk with him in about a little more than 10 minutes and get his reaction to some of the latest news. But we're back at it after a 4-day weekend. Had Monday off for Labor Day. Labor Day protests in big cities across the country. Protesting billionaires, as I see the headlines suggesting. And you've got other stuff happening, especially in Chicago, where Mayor Brandon Johnson expects federal law enforcement actions as early as this Friday. So we'll hear about the latest from Governor J.B. Pritzker, Brandon Johnson, and even Kristi Noem appearing on CBS over the weekend, responding to some of what Governor J.B. Pritzker had to say. So that's what we're going to be tackling today. Public safety, and then getting Ted Dabrowski's response on that, and maybe also talk with Ted about education, because that's something else that he has followed rather closely with the school year having started now in full swing. And you've got the governor talking about increased funding and the grades. Are they matching increased funding? So we'll talk a little bit about that as well coming up here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Go to the website, thecentersquare.com. You'll be able to see the latest headlines, not just from Illinois, but also from Washington, D.C., where there's been a lot of back and forth between the state of Illinois and the Trump administration. And that's where we're going to go next here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Each and every weekday morning here as I recover from a Labor Day weekend. And it was a good time. Hopefully you were able to kick back, relax, and enjoy some time off. And maybe get some grilling done. Wrap up some last-minute yard things before the weather completely turns, but we are rapidly approaching fall. All right, it's Illinois in Focus Daily right here with the Center Square.
Homicides are down 32%. Shootings and shooting victims down nearly 40%. Robberies are down nearly 35%. You all, we are moving in the right direction, and we're not going to let anybody turn us around.
Chicago had more murders than any other American city. In fact, just last year in 2024, they had 3 times the amount of murders that LA did, 5 times more than New York City. So he can talk about what a great job he's doing as governor, but he's failing those families who will no longer have their child with them, their mother or their father.
It's just some of the back and forth between Illinois elected officials and the Trump administration when it comes to public safety and what to expect ahead. Good morning. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. You can like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning. The live chat is always lively, and you can join in some of the conversation there. But let's go ahead and jump into the latest of the back and forth between the Trump administration's focus on public safety, immigration enforcement, and the city of Chicago in the state of Illinois. Of course, you had the Trump administration with Pam Bondi file that lawsuit challenging the state's sanctuary policies for immigrants. That lawsuit, from my understanding, it's done. The district judge dismissed the case without prejudice, allowing for the DOJ, the Department of Justice, to file an amended complaint, and they were given a deadline, and that deadline's come and gone, and they did not, last I checked, file by that deadline. So that case is now dismissed with prejudice. But that, I don't think, is going to keep the Trump administration from enforcing federal immigration law. But what that looks like on the streets of a place like Chicago is interesting because you still have those migrant sanctuary policies. So here is Mayor Brandon Johnson over the weekend, talking about an executive order he signed to protect Chicago communities, he says.
Protecting Chicago will ensure that every Chicagoan knows their rights, that every single family is prepared, and every part of city government is directed to protect the people of Chicago from federal action. This sweeping executive order directs our Department of Law to pursue any and every legal mechanism to hold this administration accountable for violating the rights of Chicagoans. This order affirms that the Chicago Police Department will not collaborate with military personnel on police patrols or civil immigration enforcement. We will not have our police officers, who are working hard every single day to drive down crime, deputized to do traffic stops and checkpoints for the president. This order affirms the CPD officers will be directed to wear CPD uniforms and refrain from wearing masks so that residents can clearly distinguish them from federal agents.
So Johnson talking about his executive order and all the various things he's wanting to do. And I think clearly there he says that the order states Chicago police are not going to cooperate with federal military. And what that might look like, just look at L.A. few weeks ago, right? You had ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, conducting activities, law enforcement activities, and there were some rocks and bricks thrown through vehicle windows and vehicles lit on fire. So Trump called in the National Guard to protect federal assets, including buildings and personnel. Could that be what happens in Chicago? Is it going to be a National Guard presence protecting federal immigration officials? You've got the Johnson executive order going another step further here and looking for transparency.
It also gives very specific directives to our law department to make specific FOIA requests so that if there's any immigration enforcement that's happening in our city, we have to know about it. Just back in June 4th, there was an entire operation in our city that the federal government didn't disclose. This is about uncovering the truth. But this is also about making sure that every single legal measure that's available to us, that my law department pursues it. But it's also ensuring that all of our departments are in lockstep to protect Chicagoans. That's what this is about. This president continues to go well beyond the bounds of the Constitution to the extent in which our democracy is in peril right now. I'm going to do everything in my power as the mayor of this city to protect Chicagoans.
He also went on to talk about when there could be federal actions, increased federal actions, and, for instance, immigration actions. I mean, there's even been talk about using a naval station at Great Lakes to have a staging area for federal law enforcement and possibly the National Guard to stage and go out into the field and conduct law enforcement activities. And that could happen as early as Friday.
We are hearing that he plans to send these individuals to the city of Chicago this week as early as Friday. But let's be very clear what his ultimate motives are, though. He wants to send in federal troops. Make no mistake about it. He wants to send in the National Guard. He is looking to provocate, to justify his failures.
And he went on from there to criticize President Trump. And you even had Governor J.B. Pritzker last week. We talked about this, where he speculated that Trump is trying to interfere with the 2026 election, and that election obviously is going to determine who controls Congress. And Democrats have already signaled in the past during the first Trump administration that they would impeach him. They impeached him not once but twice. Neither one of those was upheld in the U.S. Senate. But regardless, that could be an indication of what the Democrats may want to do if they were to take control of Congress in the 2026 midterm election, with 2 years left in the Trump administration. So obviously the politics here, interesting, especially with that allegation of what Pritzker said was the motive Trump has to interfere with elections. But regardless, if there is federal action, Johnson says the city of Chicago is ready to go to court.
Look, he's tried to sue cities like mine, and he lost, particularly around trying to withhold federal dollars because we are a welcoming city. And so, yes, we will use the courts if that's necessary.
And did you say as early as Friday, like 6 days from now?
Yes, these are a matter of days. We don't have weeks. We're talking about days.
And so, he went on from there and said that this is not what Chicago's about. And as you heard earlier, he says it's threatening our democracy. Governor J.B. Pritzker, last week, he at an unrelated news conference was asked about the ongoing back and forth of having federal law enforcement increase immigration law enforcement, and he said that he's received no calls from the Trump administration.
I have not received any calls from anybody in the federal government telling me about troop movements or plans for them to move people into the city of Chicago or to the state of Illinois. And I think that's offensive. I think that's, as far as I know, never been done before. We've always been consulted. We have local law enforcement. We have state law enforcement that should be coordinated with. If you want to go after criminals, great. We do too.
And a lot of back and forth in the media, but no phone calls. And Pritzker says, listen, there's no emergency in Chicago.
There is no emergency here. We always need help fighting crime, of course. And there are great civilian law enforcement across the country in the federal government who can help do that and do. And we work with them all the time. Would love more help doing that, but not troops.
And he also reiterated what he believes is the motivation Trump has for wanting to send National Guard troops to Democrat-run cities.
Again, nothing to do with actually enforcing the law, nothing to do with actually keeping the peace. They want to inflame something. And that is what they want.
Again, he had said previously that it's a matter of changing outcomes for elections, the governor alleges. The governor did go on one of the Sunday morning talk shows on CBS's Face of the Nation, where he discussed more about, he says they need some federal assistance for law enforcement.
We have some working with us now. Would love more help. You know what else he's doing? He's cutting funds that help us to fight violent crime from the federal government.
And he also was asked directly, if you haven't received a call, why don't you call the president?
You see no need to call yourself and say, well, what is this all about? Here's what I would like instead.
When we have an emergency and we need the federal government to send troops in, believe me, I will pick up the phone and call. That is not something going on in Chicago today.
CBS also talked with the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and she reacted to the governor's ongoing pronouncements on media.
This seems like it's more about Governor Pritzker's ego now, rather than actually protecting his people. If he has one murder in the city of Chicago, he should be calling President Trump and saying, what's your ideas? What can we do? They don't even honor our detainers in Chicago. They don't go out there and work with us to make sure we're bringing people to justice. And instead he goes on TV and he attacks me when we're doing exactly what those people need.
Crime, obviously something else that's the target here, because at first it was, the crime's out of control in Chicago. The president said we may send the National Guard in to curb crime, and then it seems to have now evolved to just focusing on federal immigration law, where the president has said for months that Chicago is going to be a target where they're going to surge federal law enforcement to enforce federal immigration law. And how that's going to play out, I think we're starting to see a little bit more, especially with what happened in L.A. But the crime rate is obviously part of all of this conversation, and you've got Mayor Brandon Johnson declaring that crime is actually down.
Homicides are down 32%. Shootings and shooting victims down nearly 40%. Robberies are down nearly 35%. We are moving in the right direction, and we're not going to let anybody turn us around.
And Noem reiterating her concerns about crime in Chicago, especially the level of homicides that there have been compared to other cities of similar size.
Chicago had more murders than any other American city. In fact, just last year in 2024, they had 3 times the amount of murders that LA did, 5 times more than New York City. So he can talk about what a great job he's doing as governor, but he's failing those families who will no longer have their child with them, their mother or their father, or their cousin, aunt, and uncle that are gone forever because of the violence that's happening in Chicago.
What's going to happen? We'll be watching. Governor J.B. Pritzker has an event at 3 o'clock this afternoon to continue the conversation about what to expect when it comes to the Trump administration's federal enforcement of immigration here in Illinois, in Chicago. But you also have the Illinois Freedom Caucus that's going to be holding a news conference as well, talking about what they say is the need for increased federal activity in Illinois. So plenty more to talk about this as we continue with Illinois in Focus Daily. Wake up each morning with us, get the headlines in your inbox, go to thecentersquare.com, get the newsletter. It's free to you. We're a free newswire service, and we definitely appreciate any donations you can make and contributions you can make. So go get more information at thecentersquare.com. Stand by as we prepare a live interview here with Illinois in Focus Daily. The 2026 election is more than a year away, but still plenty to talk about as we go through a primary process and then head into the bulk of what's going to be a high-flying election year with gubernatorial election up. Governor J.B. Pritzker looking for a third term, but some names stacking up for Republicans who want to challenge him, and plenty of issues in Illinois for us to focus on. It is Illinois in Focus. I'm Greg Bishop with you each and every weekday morning here, and we just had a segment where we heard what Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson had to say, and what Governor J.B. Pritzker had to say about public safety in Illinois. And in particular, it looks like it's starting to be narrowed down to really focusing on illegal immigration and what the Trump administration plans to do in Chicago. But to discuss this some more is Ted Dabrowski, former president of WirePoint, but somebody who soon is expected to announce his intentions for a gubernatorial run. Ted, thanks for taking time with us this morning. When can we expect an official announcement from you?
Thanks, Greg. Excuse me. We should have an announcement within the next week. So I appreciate you having me on.
No, absolutely. And even if you weren't going to announce, you're somebody who's a wealth of information, and the way you analyze things is, we've featured it before here with Illinois in Focus and even with the Center Square. So let's just jump right into the issues. Obviously, you've watched what Governor J.B. Pritzker's had to say about public safety, about immigration enforcement. You've heard what Brandon Johnson has to say about it. Is this the right approach that the state of Illinois should be taking in opposing and putting up barriers to federal immigration enforcement?
Well, yeah, I think there's so many levels of wrong that both Johnson and Pritzker are doing, and if you followed WirePoints at all, you've seen that we've tracked the numbers, and I think the data has to do a lot to tell us what's going on. And for 13 years, and this will be the 14th year, that we have led the country in total murders. 3 times more than Los Angeles in terms of murder rate, 5 times more the rate of New York City. And so we've got a big problem. We've seen the carjacking problem. We've seen the car theft problem. It's been massive. And yes, we have a decline this year compared to the highs of the last few years. But I don't think we should pretend that more than 260 murders in the South Side and West Side is somehow normal again. It's normalized. It's okay. We've seen all kinds of actions that have weakened the police morale, destroyed our policing, destroyed our prosecution, destroyed our sentencing, and therefore, the chance of a bad guy doing a bad deed and getting caught and doing time is almost zero now because the arrest rate is so low. We've got a deep problem, and we should be embracing support rather than fighting it. And I think the hypocrisy of all this whole discussion is we had the National Guard in for the DNC to protect the political elite, but to even mention that word National Guard when it comes to South Side and West Side, has somehow become a bad word, and that's a big problem we have.
Well, I don't know if you recall, I remember clearly the images of National Guard surrounding our state capitol here in Springfield, right after the January 2021 when President Joe Biden was coming in, and they were stationed there for days. But obviously, COVID going on then as well, and a lot of uncertainty about a whole host of things. But regardless, it's happened in the past where the National Guard has been brought into Illinois to help with public safety. So why do you think the apprehension there from the Johnson administration, the Pritzker administration? We saw what happened in Los Angeles, right? The National Guard came in to protect federal assets and personnel because there was riotous behavior going on. Should that be what we expect from Trump, having seen it already in L.A.?
Well, there's a few points. One is, look, we have made things worse in Illinois. We passed a Safety Act where we're the first state to entirely limit cash bail. So we've got more murderous or dangerous people on the streets than we should. We've ended car chases, foot chases. We've talked about, Johnson has pushed the defund the police in his starting before he started. we've really emboldened criminals, and Johnson has excused all the actions by calling the mob groups, young mob groups, as silly kids. So he is actually incentivized, or at least, he's not tough on crime. And so we have made our own problems here. And we shouldn't relax just because the numbers are down this year. And by the way, the numbers are down nationally everywhere. This is not a Chicago phenomenon, so we can't take credit for what we did in Chicago. So, ShotSpotter was removed. There are so many things that we've moved in the wrong direction. And I would argue that Pritzker and Johnson are really more about protecting criminals than they are about protecting the actual victims. So we've brought it on ourselves. Now, I will say this, the National Guard is supposedly brought crime way down in D.C., and that's good news. But National Guard isn't a solution, right? It's not a long-term solution. It's a short-term solution to show the people that we care about them in the South and West Sides. We're not gonna just say, hey, crime is down, so we're not gonna protect you. But the real solution has to be to unwind all these bad policies that Pritzker and Johnson have done. Support the police again, bring the police morale way back up, because that's the starting point. People want more policing. We see that in polls all the time. We did a poll at Wire Points. People want more policing. They want good, fair policing, of course, but they want more protection. We should give them that. And we have to flip the model on its head. And Johnson and Pritzker are pursuing policies that allow more crime rather than stop crime.
Pritzker told CBS, and he's said it before, he wants to see more ATF. He wants to work more with FBI. He says that they already do that to a degree, and they could use more of that assistance. But there seems to be that fine line drawn about immigration enforcement. Why do you think that is?
They're trapped. We've trapped ourselves. Pritzker and Johnson with the sanctuary state, sanctuary city policies. They've gone all the way in. We have to back up and say there's one thing. Governor Pritzker's running for president. He's running for the far left of the primary. He's staked out his claim there. That's his path. That means everything he does has to be against Trump, and he can't be seen as doing anything that would be against the unions. Against his base, and so therefore he's trapped. He's trapped in the sanctuary state, sanctuary city type policy. At Wire Points, we've shown how much money we've spent on. We've incentivized illegal immigrants. We released the data on how much has been spent on health care for illegal immigrants. Now it's got to be close to $2 billion. We've prioritized the wrong people. We should be taking care of our own residents, and it's understandable why so many Latinos and so many Black residents are upset. Because we keep prioritizing illegal immigrants over our own very residents who are struggling under a Pritzker administration and under a Johnson administration.
We're talking with Ted Dabrowski. He is former president of Wire Points, expecting an announcement on a gubernatorial run in the next week or so. And I appreciate you being here. Obviously, the crime issue top of mind for Chicagoans in certain areas. You've got the ongoing question of the federal government and how they're going to enforce immigration. But one thing that Pritzker has said is we can use more money for violence intervention, for instance. And he criticized former Governor Bruce Rauner from more than 6 years ago, and also criticized President Trump for withholding certain types of violence intervention funding. For those who don't understand what violence intervention funding is, give us just a brief overview and whether or not it's successful.
Well, what it means is the government doling out more money to groups, spending tens and hundreds of millions, giving it to grassroots groups, you might call them that, or intervention groups, a lot of not-for-profits. And the big problem we have is that if you've looked at exclude this year because things the numbers are dramatically better in crime. They're better in crime across the country, but we've been spending lots of money on that, and nobody's clear about the outcomes at all. And when I say again, even if we have lower crime today, we'll still have, for the 14th year in a row, leading the country in murders. We have a sickness, and we have to really approach it. We shouldn't be leading the country in murders. And when you look at the 20 largest cities in the country, we have the highest murder rate. So we have the worst of both things. We need to be tough on crime, and that starts again with the police morale and supporting our police. If we don't start there, and if we don't prosecute right, if we don't prosecute, and if we don't sentence, that whole chain of arrest, prosecute, sentence, it doesn't work. And we've seen the revolving doors over and over. And we see CWB has done a great job of exposing all these people who are, alleged felons back out on the street, creating another felony, another murder, another shooting. And these kind of things have to stop.
Wanted to switch to education, Ted, as Governor J.B. Pritzker late last week before the holiday held a news conference about how much money his administration has increased in K-12 funding. He highlighted some outcomes he says is showing Illinois is making progress. I know the work that you've done in the past really delving into these numbers and even looking at some of the education numbers at Illinois' report card from the State Board of Education. What do you take away from that? What's your assessment of whether or not more tax dollars going to K through 12 schools has actually improved the outcomes?
Yeah, I mean, more money has actually maybe made things worse. I think we've got such a bloated bureaucracy. Let me back up. I want to say that literacy in Illinois has to be one of our biggest priorities. And I mean literacy by measuring the numbers, by the actual metrics, not by how much we spend, but how many kids can read. And I want to reel off for you the actual numbers from last year, a few places. Rockford, Black children, only 10% could read at grade level last year. Peoria, Black children, only 9% could read at grade level. Quincy, white children, only 30% could read at grade level. I can go on and on. Waukegan, 16% for Hispanics. Decatur, this is, I think, the most interesting. White children, only 14% read at grade level. That is after we're spending $24,000 a kid in education across the entire state. And of course, we could talk about Chicago, where we spend over $30,000 a kid, and and only 1 in 5 kids can read at grade level. It's a disaster, and we shouldn't celebrate high graduation rates. We should not celebrate how much money we spend. We should again return to how many kids can read at grade level, and and how do we get that number way up? And every year should be a trajectory of higher and higher and higher. And those should be the goals, not spending, not all those other things, all this DEI stuff we're doing in schools. We should focus on literacy and numeracy, because these cities will not succeed. They won't have a workforce if only 10% of kids can read at grade level.
And how do we get that focus on literacy? Is it a law that needs to be implemented? Is it maybe taking away certain mandates that there are put onto local school districts?
It's right, Greg. It's rethinking education, and there's no reason why Illinois can't be the leader in that. You've got places like Mississippi who are taking the leadership. There's things like, look, if you can't read in the 3rd grade, then you're in big trouble. And so, Florida, Mississippi have laws that say, hey, you can't go to the 4th grade if you can't read in the 3rd. And, that makes everybody focus on reading. And, you bring the unions, you bring the teachers, you bring the companies in the city, bring everybody, volunteers, everybody obsesses about literacy. And if we don't get to that, it's all a joke. We're wasting money, and most of the kids can't read. There's also the talk of school choice, right? We need to give more choices, because the longer it takes us to fix these public schools, the longer kids are trapped there. And we know that the wealthy people can move to a private school, move to another district, move to a good public school district. But everyday Illinois can't, and we should really help them have choices, because in Indiana, every kid has a choice about what school they attend. Same thing in Iowa. They all have school choice. In Illinois, not a single kid has school choice, unless they're wealthy, of course.
Ted, the election's coming up in 2026. Got a primary we got to get through. There's going to be plenty of opportunity to talk about a whole host of other issues. But, obviously, when we're talking about education, you can't not recognize the state having the highest property taxes, which the state of Illinois really focuses on, how to fund local schools using local property taxes. How do we get that down? Is it more state money going to education and trying to relax?
Watch out there.
Yeah. So tell us what the answer is there to lower the property taxes in the state of Illinois.
You'll hear a lot of politicians say, well, we just need to take more ownership at the state level, basically increase spending at the state level and decrease spending at the local level. That's just another trick, because, that doesn't change how much this government is spending, right? They're just moving it from one pocket to the other. So I'm very cautious about that. We need to take the steps that lower overall taxes, period, not have any games being played. And so, there's a lot that can be done. One of the things that is the biggest albatross around our neck are these pension debts. And, we continue to dole out pensions. Governor Pritzker just signed a bill to increase Chicago pensions. And Chicago can't afford them. They're already broke. I think we're going to see checks get slashed at some point. Pension checks get slashed because the hole is so big now. So I think we need to do something like 401ks for new workers. It's constitutional. It's what everybody else, it's what ordinary everyday Illinoisans have is a 401k style plan. And we should be fair and have what's good for the private sector should be good for the public sector. There's things like Pritzker signed increased spiking for salaries for teachers at the end of their career. So that was another thing that was done. We have the most units of government in the country. In Illinois, by far. You add up some of our neighbors, we have more, we add them up and we still have more units of government. And there we have bloat, duplicative administrations, superintendents, assistant superintendents, all this administrative bloat that shouldn't be going on with huge pensions. So that's the kind of stuff we need to look at and make it fair to everyday Illinoisans, because if not, everyday Illinoisans will keep leaving. We've got counties that want to secede. We've got the highest out-migration in the country, except for New York and California. This state, let me be clear about this, Greg, this state should be a top 5 state for growth, for economic prosperity, for education, where you raise your kids. And right now we're a bottom 5 state in just about everything. And that's why people are leaving. Highest property taxes, second highest gas taxes, doubled by Governor Pritzker, the highest cell phone taxes. I could go on. And that's what's making everyday Illinoisans suffer. And they shrug their shoulders. They've lost hope. And I want to bring back hope, because we can fight back on these things. We got to expose them, talk about them, make the legislature address them, make the media address them. Thank you for having me on, Greg, to talk about these issues. But the media doesn't address them either. And that's one of the big goals is to make sure everybody knows what the problems are, because you can't fix problems that you won't acknowledge.
You mentioned the governor in the education and the property taxes and the outbound migration that there is. I don't know if you saw the governor late last week down in Southern Illinois. He was asked about the separation movement, and he said, either you can stick around and help make the state better, or you can, if you want to move. What's your response to somebody who, is the governor of Illinois telling people, if you don't like it here, go ahead and pack up and move?
I think it tells you everything you need to know about Governor Pritzker. He's had almost 7 years to lower property taxes. He doubled gas taxes, as I mentioned. He's had a chance to make this state the state that it should be. But outmigration is increased with him. If it wasn't for the illegal immigrants coming in, our population would be even more shrunk. He's doing all the wrong things. And I think when he says that people move out, I mean, that's, I don't like to name call, but that's crazy talk. You don't tell your residents to move out. You go down there and you listen to them and you address their concerns and you work with them. And look, if we had low taxes and whatever, it'd be one thing. But Governor Pritzker, under him, he has refused to lower property taxes. They've only gone up. He's raised taxes overall. We have some of the highest taxes in the country. And people can't afford to live here anymore. It's too expensive to live here. They look elsewhere. In Indiana, and the borders are right there, and those other states are growing their populations. We're not.
Ted Dabrowski. All right. Did it reconnect or not? I just got the note here that it disconnected. Okay. It did come back on eventually. All right, good stuff. It's Illinois Focus Daily. All right, yeah, so 8:30. It does this every morning. Patriot from Warsaw, you're right. Every morning when they're back in session with school, I think that's just because, listen, I live in kind of a rural area. I've got high-speed internet. Jack that up. But it seems that just because I'm right down the street from a school, those kids get on their cell phones at school and checking TikTok and stuff, and they should be listening to the teacher. All right, so it's all we got today. Again, it's a short week. Of course, we were off yesterday, but I'm actually going to be traveling this weekend. I'll share with you more detail about where I'm headed, and it's going to give us kind of an inside look into some political strategies that involve a caucus of lawmakers from all across the country. So we'll be talking more about that late this week and into early next week. And then we've got the 7th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals on the 22nd of this month. They're going to be holding their oral arguments for the gun ban challenge. You've got October with fall veto session coming up. Guys, we got so much to tackle. And it feels like we're just getting started. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning with the Center Square. Go to thecentersquare.com, get the newsletter. And get the podcast anywhere you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus Daily. And have a great Tuesday morning.